Welcome to the Picky Girl Travels podcast, the show for Black women who want more out of life and to live it as they see fit. The message here is all about defying convention, embracing adventure, and regretting absolutely nothing. I'm your host, Adelia Borachade of PickyGirlTravelsTheWorld.com. Today's episode is I don't know how to describe it. I think you are going to enjoy it. I have been a guest on Christine's podcast, Christine Job of Flourish in the Foreign. I've been a guest on her podcast and on her YouTube channel a couple of times. If you have watched the series I did on YouTube about the best places for Black women to live abroad, you'll recognize Christine. We've known each other for a while, but I love to chat with her because she always has such an interesting take on things. One of the things that this show is very, very big on is about living life on our terms. And Christine's platform embraces that as well. But as you'll see, I think she looks at it from a slightly different perspective. So I hope y'all enjoy this.
That's like because okay, so this is the tail end of my trip. I am only in town for one night. I was like, I'll save some money. I'll just get a hostel room. I think I have passed the point in my life where I can stay in hostels. But anyway, woman in the bottom bunk perked up when I was packing and she started asking me questions, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, well, what do you do for a living? Or she said, what do you do in Mexico? And I was like, uh, as little as possible. Like, I'm
Kick
still
it. That's just being
Yeah, I'm
chilling
still
out.
ill prepared to answer that question.
and so hearing you say, oh, you out there living your best life, my instinct is to shy away from that, but I need to embrace it because my word for this year is flourish. And
Hmm.
that's what I want to do. How I want to live. I want to do things with flourish. And my initial response to your comment did not have any flourish on it. So I need to be better.
Hey, I think that's the biggest thing that I've found about cultivating a life well lived. I think, and especially this phenomenon with Black girl soft life and stuff like that. I've been really fascinated about that. I've been doing like research and talking to people about it. It's been really fascinating. And what I find is that as an aesthetic, in TikTok, like dewy lighting and like, makeup and a Starbucks or whatever else people think is like soft life. For Black women, that's easily palatable. But to actually engage or embody a soft life is where a lot of resistance happens, I'm finding with a lot of Black women. And it's not because we as Black women don't desire to have a soft life, to release our burdens, for people to get off our back, leave us alone. That's not the issue. The issue is about giving ourselves permission to let go of either responsibilities that are not ours. It's about mindsets. It's about beliefs. It's about identities that no longer serve us. And so soft life is really about unbecoming. And people, I think, because TikTok and consumerism in America, think it's about getting and getting, and I should feel like whatever. And really, it's about an unbecoming and permission, is what I found. And that unbecoming is really about letting go of some of the things we hold so tightly about to our identity, whether it be about like, I can't be living a soft life. I'm resourceful, I'm responsible. Somehow living a soft life is the antithesis of that. It's not. living a soft life is living a life with as little resistance, internal resistance as possible. Now, that may uh, be depicted outwardly, right? By delegating to other people. You're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Because inside I'm like, I don't feel like going to a grocery store. So no. But true soft life is about releasing as much internal resistance. And really, that is, like I said, it's an unbecoming. And a lot of it has to do with, at least what I'm finding, a lot of the identities that cause us so much internal strife that ends up being health strife and issues that cause us so much angst in our lives, that I think especially as women who are thinking about moving abroad and want to live abroad don't understand, is that like those same things people are holding on so tightly to. I think especially as they live abroad, because they're trying to anchor themselves into something. Because you're in a foreign place, you're like, but I am who I am. You can be who you are, but you can also let go of the things that you no longer need, especially if you're no longer in survival mode, especially if you're like, okay, I had to live my life like X, Y, and Z because in Atlanta, because had let everybody know I wasn't with the BS and whatever, whatever. But now I live this other life and I got to let that go. And without giving ourselves permission, truly permission, and permission is not just saying, it's okay, you're safe, you're fine, you're going to be great for years and years to come. It's really about saying, it's okay to let go a part of yourself. It's not going to mean that you're going to be broken or you're going to be incomplete or you're going to be like, no, I think people think, you could live a soft life and be like some kind of Pollyanna. Like all of a sudden, I'm just gonna be like, oh, it's all positivity all the time. No, but you have to give yourself permission to let go of something, to dead a part of yourself, so that in this next chapter of your life, you're not just going through the motions in a new location. You're not just um living and being like, okay, this is great, I get to do this, but you're actually embodying and enjoying. And that's where flourishing comes. Because in my mind, you flourish. Flourishing is about being put into a situation in which you get to reach the pinnacle of health and well-being in all aspects of your life. Therefore, you should be blooming flowers you never bloomed before, bearing fruit you never bared before. You'd be like, I didn't even know I could grow a pineapple. Now I know. Like that's the type of tree I am, or bush or whatever. That's what that's about. So we talked about this so much, and I know you say about it on your
Yeah.
platform so much. Like moving locations, it can help for sure, free up resources, give you some type of peace of mind. But for that longevity, for that sustainability, for that flourishing, we got to let go of a lot of stuff. We got to dead a lot of stuff. And I think what's also probably really scary is that saying that you're going to dead a part of you means that you're not going back there, right? Not saying you can't go back to the States wherever you come from, but like you're not going back to that role. And I think for a lot of people, they may have been a lot of other people's anchor or whatever. And you deading that part of yourself means that a lot of other people got to find a way, and like you can't go back to that position, and that's scary, but I think it's freeing too.
Okay. There's a lot in what you just said. A lot of little things, and I'm over here trying to make my notes because my brain is not as good as it used to be about remembering things. I think the first thing that you mentioned was that soft life, and that's the thing I wanted to talk to you about, because this is what triggered me, because I've been meaning to reach out. We needed to chat. I love it when we do. um I was talking to somebody who was in town visiting, and she said something about the alarm she had to set, and I was like, well, I only set an alarm to make sure if I need to like get up from my nap at a specific time. And she made a comment to me. She was like, "Yeah, that's soft life right there." And I'd never thought about it in that kind of a framework. And so when you talked about it as an unbecoming and unlearning, letting go of those responsibilities that are not ours. Because of course, if somebody looks at me now and they get how I live my life, they don't know about all of that unhumming that I had to do, all of other people's responsibilities and hang-ups and things like that that I had to let go of. So I've never heard it put quite that way. That is exactly what it is. And it's interesting that you talked about the resistance that you get when you're talking about this is more about when you step outside of the aesthetic of the soft life. Like, and I sat here and nodded when you said that, because when I, talk to my clients who are primarily Black women, people, when you start to get to the unbecoming part, that's where it's like, well, I don't know if I can do that. But if we're talking very surface level things, like, girl, go ahead and take that, take time to get that massage, take an extra day, on the vacation, what have you, that there's much less resistance to those kinds of things. And I just found that so interesting.
Yeah, because I think as Black women, especially we'll speak exclusively about Black American women, um, I think we've been great strivers and achievers. Give us a to-do list, we knocking it out 2 weeks in advance. We got it done. You're like, it was impossible. I tried for 2 years. We got it done in 2 weeks. We're done. Like, I don't know what to tell you. We get things done. And so put to us as in a task to be done, soft life is easy. Put it to you as, oh, I need to internally prune some things. I have to shift a habit, a response. I have to sit down and get to know myself deeply to understand what is it that I need to live a soft life, right? What do I need to flourish? Those are two different things. Getting a to-do list done and smiling and bearing it, or grinning and bearing it and stuff like that, is one thing. Intimately getting to know who you are and what you want, not what looks good for everyone, not what everyone thinks you should have, not what your mom thinks is the best, not what everyone, feels is the next best step or what everyone else is doing. For you to actually intimately get to know yourself and trust yourself. I think there's an epidemic in Black American women of a lack of trust. I think that we're really good at, like I said before, getting tasks done, seeking information, being like, whoa, 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 what's this on Twitter? I'm gonna do my research. I don't know what y'all talking about. We're good at that. We're good at finding second opinion, third opinion, whatever, whatever. When it comes to trusting ourselves, that's a whole other situation. We can intellectually be like, I'm tired, I need a vacation. But to think like, I'm tired and I don't want this life. Like this
I
life.
I have leaned into intuition because I noticed that very thing. That I
Mm,
My argument is, we've been conditioned, particularly as women, to ignore our own intuition, that own sense of, this is not right for me. And to
exactly.
dismiss it, like, oh girl, you being silly, you're overthinking it, like, to dismiss this thing that is innate and internal, that is supposed to be there to help us. um Before I forget, I am curious, for you,
Mhm.
did that time of introspection, were you able to do that before you left the US, or is that something that came about after you'd already moved?
No, which is so crazy because I'm all about move about with intention, which I am because I didn't move about with intention. And at the time, I would have sworn up and down like I'm an intentional person. I pray, I do my affirmations, but no, when I moved abroad, I was so burnt out. I don't know if I could have been intentional if I wanted to, right? I didn't even have language for burnout. So when I first moved abroad, I moved to Spain almost 6 years ago, and I moved to La Rioja, so the wine region. I was doing a sabbatical. I was teaching English. I use that very loosely. I was teaching English 12 hours a week, 3 days a week. So really straight chilling, right? In wine country. And I was miserable, but in a different way. I was drinking a lot of wine, so it was a different way. But I was still really miserable. And I found I was miserable because I was still caught up in comparison, right? So I have a law degree. I worked at a startup. All my friends are either lawyers, doctors, engineers. That's just what it is. And I was in Spain drinking wine, feeling horrible because I wasn't a lawyer. And I was like, but you didn't want to be a lawyer. Yeah, but like, what am I
Like, that's
doing? I'm
why
not
you
even
in Spain
working
in the
very hard.
first place, right?
Exactly. Like, I wanted a different life. I wanted a different life, but when I had a different life, it was making me feel inadequate. I was comparing myself to everyone else because, my friends had the golden handcuffs. So they were working 70 hours a week. Okay, like they worked. And I was like, I did not want that. That's why from law school, I did a startup. Like I went my own way. I've always gone rogue. But something about that comparison kept me frozen for a minute. And then I had to get real and said, it's not about my location. It's not about anyone coming into my life. I am the cultivator of my own happiness, my own contentment. I have to say what is okay with me. I'm the one that's holding the compass. My compass might be pointing a different direction than anyone else, and that's fine. But I've got to be true to this compass. And it was during that period of time that I recognized that, like, I have to trust myself. And I also have to define what a life well lived for me is. Because if a life well lived was to be a high powered attorney, I would do that. But I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I have to figure that out. Right. Or if the concern was like, well, I have these goals, I need to figure out what actually makes me happy and how can I bring these goals into alignment. Like some people might be like, well, I can't give up the money and I can't do this. Well, you have to figure out what your internal compass, because there's 5 million ways to the same dollar, right? So for me, it was something that I had to learn um, the hard way abroad, because there's nothing like being abroad. Um, I thought I spoke Spanish, and I was like, oh, I don't speak Spanish. I first got, I was like, I do not speak
I
Spanish.
had that
This
realization too.
right? Where you're just like, oh, this is okay. You don't know where nothing is because you assume things should be here and it's not there. You have a little bit of social anxiety. You go outside to talk because people are like, what you talking about? Having all those things happening is not the best thing. That's why moving about with intention is helpful. You're still gonna go through that period of dissonance, but at least it won't like it humbled me. It humbled me to a point where I was like, I got to figure this out or I got to go back home because I don't know what to do. And I had to get really serious about cultivating a life well lived. And I think that's also something people are like soft life. It happens to you when you drink enough
No,
Starbucks or something. And I know people don't want to hear this, but soft life requires work. It does. It's a cultivation, though. That's why I always use the word cultivation. Just like a garden, you have to cultivate it. Just like any kind of skill, you have to practice it every day. And so the life that you're wanting and that you feel living outside your home country, living abroad is going to give you, again, it may create the space and the resources, but that life is not going to befall you. It's not. Like just moving to Mexico or Portugal or wherever, it's not going to be like, oh, yes, soft life and friends, whatever. it's a cultivation. It's a cultivation because we're all very unique and individual. What we need, just like flowers, whatever you need is very specific. You might be a daisy, you might be an orchid. Both beautiful, need very different things to thrive,
Yes,
right?
yes. And that's why I love that you use the term cultivate, because like you said, at first blush you hear somebody tell you, well, a soft life, that's going to take work, and you think work is the antithesis of a soft life, because a lot of what we see on Instagram and TikTok is people living a soft life, and they appear to be luxuriating and not doing anything. But I like that you use the term cultivate, because cultivation is a kind of work, but it is different than just work. It, when you cultivate something, you're very carefully growing it, nurturing it. It's very cultivation is very intentional. I think about it, and I know it's going to sound odd coming from me of all people. You know, we often hear about like cultivating a garden. Folks, and you know, what the hell do I know about gardening and vegetables and things like that? But you don't just go outside and randomly throw some seeds and then magically get the crop that you want. There is thought, there is intention behind the choices you make, the kind of soil you choose to plant yourself, you know, all of those things. So that's why I love that you use that word. You said something about you are responsible for the cultivation of your own happiness. I've just shared a thing on IG the other day that said something about the way your life feels is more important than what it looks like. And hearing you talk about FOMO, very much, that was about what did your life look like in that moment versus what the folks you knew back stateside, what their lives looked like. Now, golden handcuffs are beautiful and golden, but they're still handcuffs. Um, but you are responsible for the cultivation of your own happiness. So when you had that epiphany, that aha moment, that simply moving to Spain was not going to fix what you were unhappy. I mean, we're not going to call them problems, but the things that just didn't feel right. How did you go about cultivating your own happiness?
Yeah, so I did a deep dive analysis because I am a very analytical person, even though I'm not an attorney. I'm like, get out the paper and pen, let's figure it out. So I did a deep dive analysis and I wrote down, first it was just like a stream of consciousness. First it was like, what is it that I don't like? Which is, just like nagging and like bemoaning at first. And then it was like, what are the things that I do like? And then I realized that I had these two lists, but they weren't really telling me enough. Then I had to go in and I sorted them and I said, okay, let's take it from different aspects of life. So I said physical wellness, professional wellness, financial wellness, emotional, mental wellness. What are things that are not working for me? What are the things that are working for me? So that gave me some clarity as to the areas of life that were like robust and the ones that were kind of weak, kind of frail, sickly. And then from those sections, I went in and I was like, okay, from the things that are not working for me, which ones of these are external factors? So things that are quote unquote outside of my control, or maybe are environmental. And what are some of the things or habits or situations are just me? Like it's you. Like you're the problem is you. And I did that for all those sections of my life, which actually, shameless plug, I actually turned that kind of analysis into my Move Abroad with Intention guide. So it's an over 43-page guide about kind of breaking down those aspects of your life, and it ends with some journal prompts and things like that. But that's what I did because for me, just feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, unhappy, just like, basically, like that doesn't tell me enough to what I can do. So I had to really understand what are the areas of my life I need to organize it? What are the characteristics of them? What are some things that I can control personally, whether it be in my habits, in my thinking? What are some things that can be controlled environmentally, whether it be joining a community, take myself out of a community, moving myself around? That for me gave me the actual list of things that I can do to start moving me in the direction that I wanted. It started getting really clear about, you know, I was teaching English and I was having a good time, but I wasn't professionally fulfilled. I was like, I knew people at the time that had done that program for like 8 years. And I was like, it can't be me. The kids are cute, but can't do it. It's not my ministry, right? So then I had to say, okay, part of this malaise that I'm feeling is professional unfulfillment. So what am I going to do about that? Now, professionally, I'm living in Spain. So external factors are the economy is not like robust in the ways that is similar to the United States. And then at the time, it was going to be difficult to get a work permit. So I had to think about all of those factors, right? Could I get a local job? Did I want to get a local job with a local salary? Okay, was there even a job that I would like? Should I go back? Because at the time I had come out of my business. Do I need to go back into my business? How can I make it more sustainable for myself? Like that was the conversation I needed to have with myself. And that's what led me to coming back into my own business and doing all the things that I'm doing now. But I think that's part of like that, like man in the mirror, woman in the mirror moment is when you write those things down, especially when you start attributing it to, is this external or is this me? Helps. And it sucks because everyone, like, I don't know, no one wants to be like, it's me. Everyone wants to be like, no, it's you. Like nobody wants to be like, I'm the problem. But there's something that's so powerful in recognizing it's you because you're like, I can make a change. Is it going to be like an exponential jump? Maybe yes, maybe no, probably not. And that's okay because it's really about instilling a new mindset and a new habit of how you're being in this life. So yeah, that's how I first started it, but it was also I do have to say that I'm an introvert and I'm an observer. So or some people call it lurker. So I would watch a lot of people like online, like in these Facebook groups when I first got to Spain, even before, but and I would hear some of the complaints that they would have and stuff like that. And look, when you're abroad, life is still lifing and you're still adulting. So it's like you can bemoan, but I also recognize that a lot of people were still a lot of the complaints were that people couldn't like be zombies and just walk through their life on automatic like they did back home in the States. Like a lot of people resented like the radical present awareness that being abroad brings you. Like even being in Spain for 6 years, I don't have like this like, if I'm in Atlanta, even if I've been out there for 6 years, I go back to Atlanta, I'd be like, all right, I know this. Even if you don't know it, I'd be like, I don't remember any of the streets. All of them are Peachtree. I don't know. Like, but there's something about being abroad that makes you really aware. And a lot of people resent that. And I feel like that's such a disservice to yourself because I always say living abroad can be a pathway to wellness. It's not automatically, but the pathway to wellness is in that radical present awareness. It's in the actual dissonance that you feel because you're rubbing up against something that you're like, what's this? What's that? And it's keeping you super focused. If you allow it, like if you lean into it, you're really focused about your life. You start making conscious decisions about your life, about how you respond to things, right? I mean, everywhere in the world, there's going to be like some Brits that complain that there's no beans and toast. And you'd be like, we're not in the UK, but they steady complain about
I,
that. For
you know
like,
what?
nobody wants that anyway for breakfast.
I always wonder about those people because I wanted to have this conversation with you about like soft life and intentionality, whether for somebody listening to this, it might be a life abroad, but there are a lot of folks who listen to this podcast that have no intention on moving abroad. one of the things about, like you said, like you're in the Facebook group, the Move Abroad group, and the Brits are complaining because there's not, it's like, well, isn't that part of the reason you chose to live in a different place, is that it is not just like home? And so that's so bizarre to me.
Look, I love grits. I haven't had a grit in 6 years. Like, even when I went back
Girl,
home, I love grits. Grits and having a Southern breakfast really can't be beat. But I don't think about it, and I'm okay without it. You know what I mean?
well, and the yeah, I do. And the broader sense of this is, if you're dissatisfied, or the way your life is going, just there's something missing, and you're looking at making a change, and you're wanting to be more intentional about the ways in which you live your life, or you're trying to embrace a soft life, like, in that acknowledgement, you are saying, the way I was doing things before is not working. So to me, that implies that you are going to examine every element of your life, whether it is eating the same food, like when you were talking about before, just that kind of like zombiness of going through life. To me, if you're trying to make a big change, what you're saying in wanting to make that change is, I don't want to just zombie my way through life. Like, I want to be intentional, and then to be frustrated that you've got to pay attention. That is bizarre to me, but humans.
It is, but it's also, I think, a reflection of, I think it's a reflection of a focus of maintaining status quo, as opposed to longevity, sustainability, especially in the context of living abroad. But you could definitely take this domestically, right? Because if you're really not trying to change nothing except for this one little thing, it's like, come on. The
Is
life
that
that you're
change going to be
wanting, that you're
sustainable?
exactly, you have to think about sustainability. You have to think about longevity in a health context, but also in an everything context: financial health, professional health, mental health, physical, like all types of health require that long view of, what is something that I can do today? What are the habits I need to create today? They're going to make this sustainable for me. That's going to actually infuse my life with some longevity. And I think that is, it's so unfortunate, because I think it's symptomatic, especially for Americans, because the way that the United States is built and the current climate, maybe always the climate, is not built for really having that type of contemplation, right? You're kind of battered
Absolutely not.
down, zombified, fed all types of stuff. I don't even know what's in it. I know every time I go back to the States, and I try not to eat, which sounds crazy, because I break out. I break out. I always have this weird
Because
rash
the
that comes
food is
up.
trash, and you don't know that until you get to some place where you're not eating trash. I
That's the
gain weight
thing.
when I'm in the US. So that's always a victory, is if I can spend time there and not gain 10, 15 pounds. Uh, and it's a little bit of it is me eating things I can't get other places, like solid American style chocolate chip cookies. But some of it is the food is crap.
Yeah. So I just feel like the system in the United States, in particular, is not built for that deep contemplation that you need in order to think about sustainability and longevity. The way the United States is going, no one is really thinking about sustainability or longevity across so many different aspects of American life. Like, people give lip service, like, yeah, get this supplement or do this. But when we think about life, life is not lived in silos. It's holistic in nature and requires all these moving pieces of life to be actually moving in the exact same direction. And it's not. So I understand when people are like, I'll just focus on losing 10 pounds. But it might be the 10 pounds, it might be the stress from work, it might be commuting, it might be, some added obligations that are put on by family members, and you need to opt out of managing that. you know, and you got to be like, that's not my issue. It's so many other things. So I'm just a big proponent, particularly for Black women who are wanting to go abroad, to think about it from a standpoint of longevity and sustainability, which requires that intentionality, but would also, all those things together will give you a soft life. A soft life, however, does require cultivation, and a soft life may not look good to other people. A soft life may not be worth it to other people. A soft life may piss off a lot of people, you know?
Yeah.
That's just what it is. And actually I'm finishing up a book that I've been talking about for years, but it is tentatively called Flourish in the Foreign: The Black Woman's Guide to Living and Thriving Abroad. And really, I talk about all of this in this book, and I'm determined to get it out by the end of this year. I actually just finished my first draft, so I got to get to the editor.
Yeah,
And I just think it's important to have these kind of conversations
it
because,
is.
yeah.
It is. I actually was having this conversation with someone a few days ago. Time in this new life of mine, time means nothing. So I can't honestly even remember, but I think it was fairly recently. But you they thanked me for the kind of things that I talk about, here on the podcast, on the YouTube channel, whatever, is because these conversations need to be had. There are times when I will not have contemplated something. I've not really given something any thought, but I heard it on your podcast, or I heard it on, like Stephanie Perry's YouTube channel or something like that. So that's again part of the reason that I want to have this conversation, as you were just saying, that embracing a soft life may not look like other folks' lives. Again, it's important not what your life looks like, but what it feels like to you. And being okay with, because this is something I struggled with a little bit. And every now and then I might say something like, well, to a lot of people, my life actually kind of looks a bit like a failure. Like I don't own a place to live, I don't own a car, I don't have a real job, there's not a man in my life. Like on the outside, I am, if people are using, like the standard American checklist for what makes a good life, what makes a successful life, I look like I am completely missing the boat. However, um, I don't generally care about what my life looks like to other people, but it feels really fucking good to me. So like that's the more important thing, but it takes time to get to that place. And I am curious, for Christine, what does a soft life look like? Because Christine, 6 years ago, that moved to Spain, I would not say was living a soft life. But what does that look like for Christine of 2023?
Yeah, a soft life for me is well, I was gonna say Pilates first, so let me say Pilates. It's me going to all the Pilates classes that I like, and because I'm an active person, so like half of my day, I always say I have like 2 days. I have like Spanish day, and then I have like US day, for like clients and meetings and stuff like that. Spanish day is going to Pilates, working out, having coffee with friends, connecting with people here in Valencia. There's always people coming through. That for me is a soft life. Is like to wake up slow. But that's I've been like that my entire life. I used to get up early to go to school. I set my alarm earlier than I needed to get up because I like to just sit in bed and like look at the wall. And I needed to look at the wall before I talk to anybody. I can't just roll out of bed. And being able to embrace that. Like I like getting up early. People be like, why you get up so early? Especially here in Spain. They're like, what? And I'm like, because nobody else is on the street. It's quiet. Nobody's hustling and bustling me. That's how I like to wake up. That's how I like to be for like the first 4 hours of being awake. I don't really like to talk to anybody. So part of being a soft life, me having soft life is that. Another aspect of being having a soft life is to be able to pursue all of the professional like goals and dreams that I want. That's a big deal for me, right? So I'm a business strategist, have clients, run Summer Mastermind, have a podcast, launch another podcast, build a business abroad in October 2023, have some other projects that are on stealth that are like really exciting, like
Write a
having
book.
space and time, writing a book, like doing a lot. And some people be like, how's that a soft life? It's a soft life for me because of all the opportunities that I get to have. That's exciting for me. It's exciting that I can think a thought. And now I'm in a position where I have such a network. I can email somebody and have a meeting with somebody about something. That's a soft life for me. I like that. And I still like being a business strategist. I like working one on one with my clients and their teams and getting them from highly regarded expert to thought leader with one of the best podcasts, out right now, thousands, hundreds of thousands of downloads, being on TV. Like, I love that. That's my jam. I love helping smaller entrepreneurs. I like all the things that I do. I love the thought that I can be like, you know what? I did a mini season on the podcast about building business abroad. I'm going to spin it out into another podcast. And I've gotten a really great response from it. Like, for me, that's a soft life, to feel excited, to be able to
To
create
do
and to
things
create in a
that you
space where I
want
have a
to
lot of
do.
support.
To
Say
do
that again?
things because you want to do them, not because you have to do them. That that's priceless.
Yeah. And I think people might be like, girl, you like working and da da da. And I'm like, actually, I have an amazing community here in Valencia that makes sure I don't work too much. Right. I have a great group of girlfriends. They actually threw me a surprise birthday party 2 weeks ago. My birthday's in January. Surprise birthday party. And I have a really fun and interesting life. Like, a lot of my girlfriends have their own business and they're also foreigners. So we have this really cool community. For me, that's a soft life when I feel excited. Um, yeah, that's what soft life means for me. It's really about doing what I want. And that's my personal motto. I always say I do what I want. And in a way, it's flippant. It's a little bit provocative, but also it's about accountability. When things are not going my way, I reflect to myself. I look in the mirror and I say, Christine, you do whatever you want. And when things go great, you're like, yeah, that is a soft life for me. That is something that has just been so incredible. I get to interview authors about their books. I'm doing that for the podcast. Their books about Black women living abroad. I got an advanced copy and PR box. I was like feeling so excited. To me, that's a soft life. Okay, I feel like that's not where do we get to the massages and stuff like that? Massage. I have an acupuncturist, a chiropractor, but for me, it is just being just giddy. Like, I'm excited to work on my projects. I'm excited to take these meetings. I'm excited to travel and talk about these things. That's a soft life for me.
It sounds like you mentioned earlier about it being a holistic thing. And like that's the piece that sort of was missing before. And it sounds like you are living in such a way that you're hitting all of those things with like uh in the various types of wellnesses, like financial wellness and I can't remember the other ones, but you know what I'm saying. So that's, I mean, although it doesn't hit the, let's say, more stereotypical idea of soft life. Like you did not mention, well, I make sure my bubble bath is here and I get my bubble tea at this time, but you are hitting all those different elements of your life and you're getting to live those parts of your life with what sounds like joy and enthusiasm because again it's the way you want to do it, not the way you have to do it. You're not moving in a place of obligation to other people, but what resonates with you. And to me, like that's the ultimate, expression of a soft life.
Yeah, but oh, don't get it twisted. I do take my baths. Like in the fall, like it's a little bit too hot for that right now. But in the fall and all of winter and most of spring, I wake up, I work out, I come home, I take a bath. I'm in the bath until about 9:30. And like I have my tea. Sometimes I respond to emails, sometimes I don't. Like that's part of life. I also take about 2 naps a day. One like in the morning time when I get out the bath. Because after that, it's a lot. 'Cause I
No,
get up
that's a good
early,
time to
I
take
work
a bath,
out.
though. That's a good
Yeah.
time to take a bath. I mean, a nap. That is a really good time to take a nap.
Take a little like 30 minute. I wake up and I'm like, all right, let's go. What do we gotta do? And I take another one, very stereotypically, like after lunch, you're spinning. Because you are like tired, because digesting takes a lot out of you. So after lunch, I take a little nap too. Um, and I live in like the old town of Valencia. So it's like all these beautiful old buildings. Like a soft life is part of like what you feast your eyes upon, the things you get to do and stuff like that. And I'm proud of myself because I feel like I have positioned myself to have that type of balance, to have not only a beautiful landscape to look at, but a beautiful community in real life and online, and to be able to pursue some of I couldn't even say like any of these things were even dreams of mine 6 years ago, let alone three. But I launched the podcast. I was like, I did not know what could be possible for me. But I think that's also what's exciting about true embodiment of soft life. You might have one thing in mind, and universe, God, or whoever may have a whole lot more to show you about what you are capable of, or what you can draw to you when you're actually in alignment with yourself, when you're being authentically yourself, and when you're nurturing that person, and when you stand up for that person. Because I think that's what also is important. You to cultivate a life well lived means that you're taking a stand. Like you have a garden, you are pulling the weeds that no longer serve you, you're intentionally dropping those seeds that you want to harvest, that you want to feast upon, you're nurturing it with water and sunlight. You have a scarecrow to get all of the little whatevers out the way. Okay, that you're taking a stand for yourself, and when you take a stand for yourself, doors open, people come to you, resources are made available. And I think that's a difference, right? If we say soft life as an aesthetic is like desiring, wanting, yearning, soft life as an embodiment, it's a cultivation. That means that you said, this is who I am,
Yeah,
not a vision board. This is who I am.
you're declaring, this is me, this is my life. And I like when you said like things come to you, when you declare that and you say that with your full chest, the universe obliges. When it's about desires, or when you're not saying it, that's really what I see, the more stereotypical version of the soft life. You're not saying, it's not, I feel I was going to say it's not action, but that's not the right word either. But when you embody it through those ways, what you're telling the universe is, this is who I am, this is what I deserve. My question for you is, if a woman is listening to this, she's watching this, and she's like, that is great. Adelia, Christine, I love that for y'all, but I can't do that. I would love to, but I can't live my life in such a way that I'm, taking a nap after my bath and only doing the things that I want to do. What do you say to that woman?
I say that it is done unto you as you believe. That's biblical. So I'm going to say that if you say that you cannot, then you cannot. I'm not saying that you can take 2 naps and go do it tomorrow, but I am saying that you have to take some agency in your life, and decide. So I think you also have to say, if you're saying, oh, I can't do that, is it more about saying, I won't do that? Because that's what it really is. Um, and I think you have to examine why you want to deprive yourself of something that you deeply desire, require, and see for yourself. I can't convince you. I can't persuade you to nurture yourself. I can't persuade you to be true to yourself because you can tell me one thing, but in the depths of your mind, or maybe just on the surface of your mind, you know what the real deal is. And it's not up for me to bring that out of you, right? I can, with my platform and with Adelia's platform, we provide inspiration and some actionable things for you to do. But it comes down to you saying, this is for me. Now, does it mean that you have to live this life tomorrow? No. Does it mean like I have to uproot my life immediately and da da da? There's no need to be extreme. We could do so with some planning. We could be intentional about it,
Be a
right?
little intentional.
You don't gotta burn down everything tonight and be like, I'm taking 2 naps. And it's like, why did you burn down the house though? Like what? Like you don't need to do that. But you have to, if what we're saying you have a lot of resistance to, if you give me the side eye, you have to know that that has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with you, right? You have to know that. You have to know that you are depriving yourself of something. And I think that the best thing for you to do is in, the quiet of your mind or the depths of your heart to figure out why you don't want to give that to yourself. Why? And the great thing is that my life may not be inspirational for you. That's fine. But my thing is that whatever has been calling on your heart, the thing that you know that is for you, why do you make excuses to keep depriving yourself of it instead of making excuses for giving yourself this thing, right?
I would say if they're thinking I'm not depriving themselves, but why do you think you don't deserve it? Like if
Mhm.
because it's two sides of the same coin to me. Either you know you want this because you're acknowledging that you want this, but you're saying no, I can't have it. And so you need to ask yourself some questions about why. Or you're saying happiness like that is for other people and I don't deserve it. And that's bullshit. So you need to examine why, what is making you feel that way. That means like, okay, earlier we were talking about how life in the United States is not really compatible with taking that time to get reflective and ask yourself these questions about like, well, why do I think I don't deserve this? Which is one of the reasons that Ivana and I started hosting retreats, like giving women an opportunity to get outside of their everyday, be somewhere else, be surrounded by other people who are also trying to embrace off life, trying to create an intentional life. Because I really feel like retreating, even if you can't like take part in a formal retreat that takes you far away, like creating that time and space for your own self is vitally important to being able to make that transition to living life more intentionally. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I think a retreat helps you to get clarity because you're outside of like your day to day. And I think maybe it'll help you to stop arguing for your excuses and start advocating for the things you actually want. And I think some people might say, like, that's so easy to say, but it really is that true because, United States, people have been arguing for years about you can't have universal health care, you can't have affordable health care. It's not possible. You move somewhere else that's not as rich or not as developed, and that's not what they're arguing for. They're arguing for healthcare is a human right. So please tell me what the difference is. Like, really, tell me what the difference is. Like, no, but what you don't understand is like their healthcare is not as good as ours. No, it actually is better. So what else are you talking about? Like, well, they don't have the most technological. They do, and it's cheaper, and everybody can access it. Or they'd be like, Well, universal healthcare has long wait times some places, but even with
So,
private options in those places, you still get excellent care and it's cheaper. So, like, what are we talking about?
but it's like because we've talked about this. Like, one of the reasons I left the US is because I don't want to live in a place where we're even having the conversation about whether healthcare is a right or a privilege. But in hearing you say that, I'm just thinking, so like, because there might be issues if we give it to everybody. We won't give it to everybody and we'll instead make it super, super expensive. Like, that don't solve the problem.
Yeah. But I think there's so many things like that in the United States where people argue tooth and nail for, and then other people in the world advocate for the exact opposite and they have it. So that's like a macro level. Let's bring it down to micro level for your individual life. What are you arguing for that doesn't even serve you, but are tooth and nail? It has to be this way. And what could you be actually advocating for? And I would just say, choosing yourself. I guess some people would say it's selfish, and I think especially as Black women, we're
It's
definitely
selfish
taught not to be
season. It's
selfish.
selfish season around here. We are all
I think it
about
should be.
choosing yourself, being selfish, because being selfish should not have a negative connotation. Like, if you were drowning in a pool and if there were a group of people drowning and you saved yourself instead of saving somebody else, were you selfish? Yes, you were. Is that a bad thing? No. It's
Mm,
unfortunate you couldn't save somebody else, but how is saving your own life a bad thing?
that's true.
So
That's
we
true.
always advocate that around here.
You have to be selfish. And it's funny that you use that metaphor because I've talked about a lot on the podcast, but actually recently on this past season 4, we'll say episode 8, there's a woman who's in Andorra. She was a professional basketball player. And we had a really interesting conversation about survivor's guilt for Black women who are living abroad. And she was so raw and real. And I really appreciate her being that raw and real for everybody. But I think that was really profound for her to share. I think that's also why it's so important to do this work before you go abroad. Not that you're not going to feel these feelings when you're abroad, life happens, things happen, you're like, what should I do? But you have to also recognize that that survivor's guilt um, doesn't serve you. And actually, people don't care. Also, there's that. Like, you be feeling all this guilt, and these other people don't be feeling nothing.
That part, that part. I talk about guilt being useless because what guilt does, sitting around feeling guilty, it does not fix anything. It makes you feel bad and whatever issues that then causes. And it doesn't change the result. And it robs you of same thing with worry. It robs you of time today. So, guilt, I'm a firm believer in acknowledge the thing, but don't hang on to it. Hanging on to it does what?
And the great thing is that everyone gets to choose their path in life. A lot of us are privileged. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are extremely privileged. Even if it feels like you can't choose your path in life, you're actually exceedingly more privileged than most to choose your own path in life. If you have the capability to watch this or listen to it, you absolutely do. Not saying it's going to be whatever glamorous on a private jet or whatever. Nobody said that. But you do have that ability. And because you have that ability to choose, you also have to recognize that other people have an ability to choose for themselves. And so there's no need to move around in your life with resentment towards other people when you could change your life. And there's no need for you to feel guilty about people feeling a certain kind of way about the changes that you're making in your life when they get to do that for themselves. So, you have to bet on yourself. You've got to bet on yourself, and you have to just really deeply love and care for yourself because you're going to find out, like so many of our grandmothers and great grandmothers, taking care of other people is a thankless job. I mean,
Okay.
even people who
Okay.
are beloved, like it's a thankless job. I'm not saying that community is not important or family is important, but I think especially in Black American communities, you know what I'm talking about. There are people who were martyrs, sacrificed everything, and it was a very
Yeah.
thankless job for them.
And when that's where you define your life and you define your value, you're gonna come up
Yeah.
short a lot of the time. It's a very specific group of people I'm talking to right now. I think very specifically for Black American women, this idea that you can go your own path, that you don't owe other people, like in your family, you don't owe other Black people. There's like not a responsibility to make choices that are good for Black folks in general, that you
Hmm.
can, and like you said, every all of us have a certain amount of privilege, and then there are some ways in which we are not. But within your specific life, when you the choices that you do have, whether they are many or there are very few, making those choices and making them in such a way that they serve you best, because like I said, you don't owe the large Black community anything. You don't owe the people in your family anything. Now, you may choose to. There, and again, there's a difference between deciding these things about how you want to live your life because you want to, and doing it because you have to, or you feel that you have to, you feel out of obligation. And so, in defining what a soft life looks like for you, I want anybody listening to this to be thinking about that and making those choices, make them, I don't want to say guilt free, but like with like love and love for yourself, that this idea that, girl, you deserve this. You're a friend of mine. Her mother told her all the time, and she tells her Black daughters all the time, you are deserving of all good things. And so as somebody listening to this, hearing you and I talk about this and thinking like, oh, well, that's for y'all. This is not for me. No, you are deserving of all the good things. And so being intentional about how you live your life and living it in such a way that you get to have the good things, what those good things are for you. Like for a lot of folks, getting to eat a plant-based diet full of fresh fruits and veggies, that is like soft life to them. For me, that is like life at a gulag. So again, remember, your soft life and mine are not going to necessarily look the same, but you are deserving of it. That's what I wanted to say.
I completely agree. I feel like, especially as Black American women, it's never a question about our competence, right? No one's like, we're stupid. No, but it has, I think, a lot to do with self-worth. What are you worthy of? Are you worthy to live the life of your dreams? Are you worthy to give that like life some space, some time for you to cultivate it? Like, are you worthy to like be able to determine your own path, right? Instead of taking everyone else's opinion and stuff like that, I say, girl, you gotta live your life. And the great thing is, like, if you decide to go back to Houston or Atlanta or Philadelphia or whatever, that's fine. It's probably gonna still be there. I don't know. The way the US is going, it'll probably still be there. But you gotta give yourself this opportunity, this chance, with intention to really create your life. And regardless if you never go abroad, I really hope that all of you take this really deep inside, um, because I really do think that you're all deserving to live a life with as least, resistance as possible. You deserve to have all the things that you would like and to live your life the way you'd like. So I hope you guys got something from this chat. I always love chatting with you, Adelia.
I know, I know. Okay, so you are, mm, I was gonna say you're very busy, but you're only as busy as you want to be. But you are host of the Flourish in the Foreign podcast. You've got a new podcast coming out. You are a business strategist. You what is the thing that's coming out soon or just started? It's not, is it
I had
a,
a summer mastermind that kicked off
that's what,
last week.
that was the word. You run your mastermind, you're doing all of these things. And
Yeah.
if somebody they love this conversation, they want to hear more of what you have to say, are interested in the idea of creating a business abroad, where do they go to find you and what you're talking
Yeah, so if you're interested in building a business abroad, particularly with soft life principles, I actually have a couple of articles on my website, christinejob.com. Also on my website, you will see on christinejob.com/podcast, I did a mini season 3 of Flourish Till Four, which was all about building a business abroad. So you can check that out. So there's a lot of free resources. I have a Build a Business Abroad guide that you can purchase. I have wait lists for my group coaching. If you want to work with me one-on-one, you can do that as well. Got all the prices and all the discovery call information there for you. My podcast, Build a Business Abroad, is a new podcast that's coming out in October this year. I'm really excited. I'm going to be talking to Black women and women of color who decided to bet on themselves and build businesses outside their home countries or run online businesses outside their own home countries. And we're talking with women who have revenues starting at mid 6 figures and up. So these are women who have figured out the game plan and are doing it really, really well. We're talking not only about the nuts and bolts, but we're talking about like the mental, really, about like how do you still maintain wellness by doing that, not only about being an entrepreneur but also being outside your home country. So I'm really excited about that. I do have my other podcast, the award-winning Flourish in the Foreign, all about celebrating, elevating Black women living and thriving abroad while examining living abroad as a pathway to wellness. All the information about that is at flourishintheforeign.com. You can get my Moving Abroad with Intention guide that I talked about there. I have a Moving Abroad with Intention course that's a self-study and a live version. I'm only doing the live version once this year, and it's going to be in August. So join me for that. So I have all of the things, and you can always find me on social media, though I'm not super active on social media, but I'm going to try to be more active on social media.
I really do like the idea, or I like our re-envisioning what a soft life can look like, because I will be the first one to tell you the life I had before was hard. It was hard as hell. And the life I have now, I go out of my way to not make my life hard. It took me a while to come around to the fact that, yes, indeed, I am living a soft life. I just never framed it in that way. But hearing Christine talk, she's describing the life that I live and the life that I want for you. I want you to live life on your terms, and I don't want those terms to be hard. I want them to be soft. So, what did you think of Christine's take on soft life and living life on your terms intentionally, or as she says, cultivating and sustaining a life on your terms? I really do love that idea that we cultivate the life that we want. Um, And I guess my takeaway from this week's episode is really more like homework for y'all. I want you to think about, what are you cultivating right now in terms of your life? Because the things that we focus on and we feed and we nurture, those are the things we are cultivating. Are you cultivating the areas of your life that need it, that are, need that little extra support? Are you cultivating the life that you want? And if you're not, what are you going to do about it? So that's some big homework. Maybe you got to ask yourself a few uncomfortable questions to get it done. Um, and I'd love to hear what you discover. You can always find this episode on YouTube. There is a link in the description to where the video lives on YouTube. You feel free to leave a comment there. Um, I'm not going to tell y'all to find me on social media and leave a comment, because my social media inboxes are not great places. So I find that I open them less and less. I do believe there is a link in the description of this, um, at least on the podcasting sites, where you can leave a voicemail. So if you want to reach out and leave it to me there, um, I'm sure my email is somewhere on the internet. I'm not gonna say my email address here, because I will get even more spam than I already do. But if it's about leaving a comment somewhere on some post of mine to give me feedback on the conversation you had with yourself, if you want to do that, I would love to hear it. Thank you, as always, for your support despite my untimely posting of podcast episodes. It is something I am working on. Um, and thank y'all again. And until next time.